We delete information and we generalize about it. So what is deletion?
Bye-bye.
Well, when you say bye-bye, what specifically do you
Get rid of
mean?
it.
It's gone. Okay. Not even there anymore. What else would be a deletion? An example of deletion?
Well, it says here like selective memory, basically.
Yeah, selective memory. So you only remember parts of what happened. Go ahead.
Right, I was going to say, forgetfulness, maybe you forgot something because it didn't mean too much to you, but you remembered the things that did
Yeah.
have a compelling reason.
So there's something, parts of something is kind of like selective memory. You've got, well, why I remembered is because it was important to me.
Right.
I use this example a lot where I asked Tom to go into the kitchen, and especially if we were in a different room, and get the salt out of the cupboard over the sink. And 5 minutes have gone by. He still didn't come back with the salt, so I'm actually getting up, I'm walking in there. He's still standing in front of this cabinet. He's got it open. And the thing is, when he stood up to go get it, he goes, I don't know where the salt is. And he's in the kitchen, and he's literally created not seeing, not finding the salt. And I walk up right in front of him. I go, Tom, this salt, the one right in front of your eyes. Have you had that experience?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we all have done that. We just totally delete things. I mean, it's just as if it wasn't there. Hopefully the things you delete are not life-threatening. We tend to expect things to be a certain way. So we delete information. What else do we do with it? We distort it.
Men do that.
Men do that a lot. We hear about it a lot.
I had to just throw that out there.
Especially narcissist men.
Say it again.
Especially narcissists.
Narcissistic men. Okay. Yeah.
Right.
I'm sorry, I just had to do that.
Yeah. So narcissist looks in the water. He falls in love with his own reflection there. So that could be a distortion. At least we assume it is. I mean, he could have been really pretty.
Literature minor?
Say it again.
Literature
Well,
minor?
yeah. Sure.
Well, there was another guy.
Studied English
A
in
guy,
college.
he made the wax wings because they were so beautiful, but
Yeah.
he flew too high to
Icarus.
the sun. They melted.
Icarus, yeah.
He flew too high to the sun. They melted.
In Greek mythology. So what else do we just? What else is a distortion? What's another example of distortion?
Life.
Life gets distorted. So say more, a little more specifically. How so?
The meanings that we assign to our experiences.
Okay, so we create meanings to things. The whole idea that we interpret things, all of that's distortion in some way. Well, if it's an interpretation of it, it's no longer the thing. So I've got knuckles that have turned white, my teeth are bared, I've got tension in my gut, and my face turned red. What is that?
Probably angry.
That's
Probably anger.
physiological response to something.
It's a physiological response to something which is closer to sensory specific, and still a little bit on the interpretive side. And definitely anger is a total interpretation, so is constipation.
I think my first experience with distortion was in grammar school, and we played that all-time children's game, telephone, where we had
Oh,
to
yeah.
say
Yeah.
something.
Whisper in your partner's ear.
Right, whisper into the next person's ear. Right.
And you get a totally different
Different
sentence
thing after they
after
get
20 or
done.
30 people.
Right.
In fact, after 3 people, you've usually got a different
Right.
story. So we distort things. Beliefs, all your beliefs are distortions, just by definition.
We also exaggerate.
There can be exaggerations. All of that is ways of distorting.
Love can be distorted in so many different aspects.
Yeah.
Our perceptions of love.
When we generalize, we're taking it's group theory, set theory, and or the idea that one thing equals a group of things. And we tend to think of it that way, which is a type of distortion if you really look at it. In fact, distortions are types of deletions. And what are other things that actually generalization makes learning possible. Because you went to school and, I don't know, today they do it in preschool, but when I was in school it was 2nd or 3rd grade when you did your alphabet. And I could go A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D. If I came on the 5th day and it was no longer A, B, C, D, it was something else, I could never have learned it. Because it took me a lot more than 5 days. but we can count on something being so every time we're exposed to it, then we have generalized about it, and we can build on the learning that was there before we generalize to the next level of things. So what else would be a generalization?
Well, all people are good, all people are bad, those are
Yeah.
generalizations.
Stereotypes.
All men kiss and tell. I mean,
Stereotyping kind of
yeah,
things.
stereotypes are definitely generalizations. You have all those examples. Those are the only three things that we do to filter information. So there's
Scary.
been a lot of research work done around this. We're pretty clear those are the filters. Now, inside each one, there's lots of examples of how we do that. In language, especially in the master practitioner level, we're going to get real specific about how language gets divided down into these three categories. There are different categories of language patterns that are useful in helping people make the connections that they need to make for the highest good of that organism. So we delete, we distort, and generalize about information from the world we live in. Pieces about how I learn, and one we're going to do today. And this one is that the idea of right and left hemisphere we talked about earlier, and it's not a perfect model, and yet it's one that we all relate to. We do have two hemispheres. So there's a corpus callosum that fibers move back and forth between each of these two sides of the brain, or the frontal part of the brain at least. And everyone has some idea what the characteristics are. So when I go right-brained activity, it'd be right brain. What are the characteristics of right brain activity?
Imagination.
So we'll just get a list here. Imagine, imagination. What
Memory.
else?
Creativity.
Creativity. What else?
Memory.
Memory. I think we have different kinds of memory, so I'll write it in there though.
Abstract.
Much more abstract. Color would be processed there. What other things are processed on the right brain?
Art.
Art would be more artistic, or art or artistic. Functions, what else? How about intuition?
Emotion.
Emotion, yes. Pictures. What else? How about rhythm? How about things that are more spontaneous as opposed to planned, or other functions? More, we got intuitive. What else? Sensations in general. And then context orientation, where one side might be more task-oriented.
Logical.
Yeah, logical.
Pattern.
More pattern orientation. Which side would that be?
Logic.
I suspect this one's a little bit of both. It's sort of like memory. Could be processed on either side. Let's see. How about random information? More options orientation as opposed to procedures.
And you're still all just doing right, is that right?
Well, yeah, we're mainly doing the right first, so
Okay.
I've started to switch over. Music, rhythm, spontaneity, random, abstract, unconscious. Much more unconscious on this side. Now let's switch. So what are functions of left-brained activity?
Detail.
More detail-oriented. As opposed to creativity, more...
Functionality.
Say it again.
Functionality?
Function, yeah, function-oriented.
Analytical.
Yes, analytical is a big word.
Linear.
Linear.
Do you have decision-making in there yet?
Black and white. Decision-making, I don't know, you think it's more right or more left? Might be both, but we'll put decision orientation. Here you want to keep your options open more often. So,
You start to write O while you write organizational skills. Organization.
yeah, something,
the
I'll
second
start to
one.
write
Yeah,
up
start
here,
writing.
organization or prioritization. What else? As opposed to rhythmic, more
More factual.
factual, facts,
Scheduled.
schedules. What else? More capture it with planning, more plan or schedule or whatever orientation. Where sensations are more perceived on one side, what would be on the other side?
Visual.
Content oriented. And you said,
Auditory? Because we had visual on the Is auditory more? I mean,
I don't know, what happens with mathematics?
It's linear, it's left brain.
Yeah, there's a point at which math is linear and a point at which people who study math go way to the other end of the spectrum with it. So it's actually both, but in the beginning, counting, some functions in math are much more left brain, some are more right brain. Less random, more
Calculated.
calculation, yeah, that'd be a good word. Calculated.
What's the word you have under analytical? Is that logical?
Linear.
Linear. Logical at the top, intuitive. All right, we got a pretty good list. Let's see if I've got anything else on mine. Analytical, sequential. Procedural, more big picture on the side. And we got detail on the other side already. So you got big picture, right? How about impulsive over on this side?
What's that under
Digital.
linear?
Black and white.
digital and what?
Digital versus analog. I guess specific, literal. All of those tend to fit. Structural might go left brain. So you got this big list of things that seem to be more on one side than the other. And as you do, we could even say more feminine on which side?
Well, the more feminine would be right.
Left side.
Yeah, depending on how you define the word. If we go in the Oriental yin-yang way of it, it's not particularly male or female, it's masculine and feminine, which feminine would be more one side, masculine would be more logical. In that way of thinking about it. So, what language? The reason I'm having you get this list and begin to delineate this is, in terms of speaking, what words are more one side than the other? What other words would go with it? So let's try this. If you're being more left brain in your orientation to things, what kind of communication are you giving?
Literal.
Cold hard facts.
Cold hard facts, man. Yeah, that's really good. This is Joe Fry.
Logical.
Facts, man, just the facts. Logical, analytical.
No feelings.
What tonality goes with it?
Monotone.
Yeah. Matter of fact. Yeah, could be more monotony, where the other side would be much more lilting, all of that. So we're gonna start an exercise, and we're gonna have pairs. So let's go twos by twos all the way down. So Lydia, you'll work with Marcia, and Annette, you'll work with Sandra. So in this exercise, you're gonna start a conversation, and you're gonna stick to the left brain way of speaking about something you're interested in. Ready? Got an idea how to do that? Go. It'll be like a 2-3 minutes. Now you're going to talk about the same conversation. What is the difference between one type of processing and the other?
Well, the difference is the vibration of it. It's like the right side is a high vibration, high energy kind of vibration. You feel very energized and uplifted by it, and you're, kind of open. And then the left side, it was just kind of like monotone. It was kind of like your vibration was lower, and you felt kind of restricted by it.
Okay. And that's your experience of it. And what were you going to say?
I was just going to add to that, like you have to cut off all that excitement and emotion.
Okay, yeah.
Just
Was there someone for whom left brain processing was more natural, easier?
Yeah, for me.
Okay, yeah. Got a couple there. So would you describe it the way she was?
No.
No. So how would you describe how it was? What's the difference between the two?
It was just very natural to go into the right brain. Had to look at the board and say to Lydia, okay, now what about the big picture? And I was looking at the word big picture.
Okay,
So
so
I had to
right brain was easier for you?
left.
Okay, left brain was easier, okay. And you had to do some stuff to get big picture.
Yeah.
Okay. What were you going to say?
I was just saying I was able to see, like, instead of staying in the moment, I was able to go forward
Okay.
and not be so in the moment. So I was able to reach out farther, like,
With
in the future.
left brain or right brain?
I think right brain.
Okay, yeah.
When we were talking about more in the future.
Yeah, so excellent. Something you noticed?
No, I just was like, I was speaking about, we were talking about a scientific thing, and I was thinking more of the doctor and the hormones and all that stuff, whatever we were discussing.
Yeah.
But then when we were doing the creative side, I was thinking about the book cover that I read, the book cover, I was trying to the image.
Okay, yeah. So you get more color and more
Right. I had a big
graphical
purple
representation and all of that. Okay, excellent. So you're beginning to notice that, what I'm wanting you to get is that there's actually a way it feels in your body to be working one way or another. That there are specific distinctions. There's a tension on different things. There's a way it feels differently, a way it sounds and smells and tastes differently. So what we're going to do now is notice what it's like to be in communication that's not the same. So we want to get the mismatching here. So A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B. All the A's, you're going to go right brain. All the B's, you're going to go left brain. Start. It can be the same conversation.
Okay.
It's a little harder
Yeah.
because
It got a lot
the other
harder.
person couldn't be enthusiastic with you, and you weren't both in the moment, or you weren't both in the details.
Yeah, okay, good. What'd you notice?
I think it just caused a little bit of confusion. It was harder to
You got a lot
make
of
sure
confusion
you
in
were
there.
communicating.
Okay, so you're having to work at it, confusion it could be in there, and you're not sure you're talking about the same thing even. Anything you notice, Lydia and Marcia?
Well, we both work with people a lot, so we had no problems.
So you're
always
used
were
you're
smooth.
used to dealing with people who are mismatching you.
Right, so we
Right.
just went for it.
Okay, anything else?
Disagreement, because one was so
Felt like
black
it was.
and white, and the other one was like, well, I don't really, and the other one was like, well, that's the way science is, these are the
Yeah.
results.
Okay.
No answer for bots.
Yeah. So you're giving it to her.
I was
And
like,
it-
that's
So either way, it feels kind of like an argument, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything you notice, Andy?
I just had a real challenge on that, just trying to see where to start and come up with an example.
So even starting was difficult.
Yeah,
Finding
for me it
examples
was,
is
yeah.
difficult. Emily?
Yeah, we even talked about 2 different topics originally,
Yeah.
because it was
Yeah.
hard to connect.
It didn't seem like the same topic anymore, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything for you guys?
Yeah,
I was basically complaining about the traffic ticket the whole
Yeah.
time.
Both were complaints, but one was really different than the other.
Right, but here's the funny part is that when I was trying to express how I feel and how it bothers me, And when Tom goes like, okay, what is the best solution? This or that, I'm like, you're not listening to me. I'm trying to like complain here, and then you're like doing this. I'm trying to tell you how I feel, and you're like, what is this bad or that bad? I'm like,
Yeah.
How do we
Good
fix
job,
it?
Don.
How do you fix that? Good. So let's not leave you in the mismatch with each other. Go back to left brain. Just
No.
yeah. So you got some real distinctions about this. So it's going to be part of the assignment for the evening is that you get in a conversation with somebody, find out which side of the brain they're processing on, and match them, and then see if you can lead them to the other. So how would you do leading?
How do you feel? Like if you found somebody in a left analytical thing, you could maybe ask them how they feel about something and maybe try to engage them at an emotional
Yeah.
level.
Now here's my suggestion about it. Instead of doing it abruptly, you want to begin to pepper the line. You got to match them first, get to their view of the world, and then begin to pepper in some of the other stuff. And when they begin to speak in that way, you know you've got them all the way over into the other processing. See if you can shift them.
Which,
Because you know somebody who's kind of stuck in left brain processing.
Yeah.
You know somebody who functions almost all in right brain processing. So how do you switch somebody like that? They have the ability to switch and do the other. Chances are. I mean, there could be exceptions to that. Not likely.
can you use words from the right side and the left side in a single sentence?
Exactly.
To kind of create both of them going,
And you do a sentence that maybe has one in it, you do another sentence that has two or three, and then you start building it until you
So-
switch the whole conversation and noticing that they've actually followed you there.
Right.
And noticing your body when you're in left brain. Now, we talked about a little more constricted, a little more
Rigid.
rigid, vertical, more specific, all those things. That feels a certain way, so you know what it feels like to be where somebody else is. Does that follow? Because you have the ability to do both things. And you notice, first of all, it has some, that you are aware of how you're processing. So first of all, you got to get that awareness, and then you can actually get aware of somebody else and how they're processing. And now you have an outcome of helping to shift them from whichever side they're more likely processing it. Of course, there are people who have a really good balance there. So who noticed the sound device that went around?
yeah.
Yeah. So it's an ohm frequency. It's a multi-frequency that's basically thought to cause balancing of the right and left hemisphere. So lots of music does that. Of course, there's some music that actually disrupts that process. I noticed it when I was sitting at a street corner and it wasn't coming out of my car. I could feel it through the ground even. So the whole car vibrates, and you're not even in the car that they're in that's playing the music. So some things are more harmonious and going to be good balancers, and some things are not. So you're more aware of that, and that's part of the assignment now. I got a few trivial questions for you. One of them is, what Las Vegas hotel and casino features the rooftop thrill ride called Big Shot?
Scottsdale.
That's right. Boy, you guys are on it. Who's the only actor to voice a character in each of Pixar's first 11 feature films?
Tom Hanks?
That's a good guess. This is probably very trivial.
Johnny
Who's the
Depp.
only? Who's John? Who?
Johnny Depp.
That was a good guess too. Who's the only actor to voice a character in each of Pixar's first 11 favorite films?
George
You remember Cheers? Cliff?
Oh, okay.
His name is John
The mailman.
Retzenberger. Yeah. All right, we got another one. In Greek mythology, what three animals made up the chimera?
The lion, the snake, and the eagle. I think.
That was close. Lion, goatee, snake. Okay. What joy of painter was known for his happy little trees?
Bob somebody.
Bob Vila. No.
No.
Bob Ross.
Happy little
able to cut them down.
Bob Ross.
Saw them into pieces.
Yes,
Made more.
Yes.
Bob Ross.
yes.
Okay.
Happy little trees, happy little people too.
Okay.
I don't remember Happy Little People.
Happy little everything.
Calico cats are almost always what sex? Why did you know
Female.
that? Yeah. What scooter brand comes from the Italian for?
Vespa?
Yes.
That's
Wasp.
the only one that I know.
I had no idea. It's a wasp. You know what a wasp is? It's a little flying bug. All right. So this is trivia for today. So you got the idea about right and left hemisphere. And on page 3, Edgar finds his purpose. Speaking of outcomes, on page 4, hopefully, is the page that says outcomes defined. Take a moment to preset yourself for learning and fill out page 4. Some of these chapter beginning 4 questions that are there. Is it sets us up to begin a next piece. So we're going to switch gears here. And we want to end with what I call well-formed outcomes. Now, what we want to do is go through this because you're going to ask these questions to somebody as a homework assignment.
Were you gonna repeat what our homework was before?
Yes.
Okay.
So, with somebody read well-formed outcome, first paragraph.
The well-formed outcome procedure is an NLP approach to setting goals that includes a series of questions that help you transform your goal into a specific outcome that programs and directionalizes the brain to create the motivation, the sequence for achievement.
Excellent. So, I didn't talk about them yet. A few of you asked about the CDs that are on the back. There's one there's one of them that says, "Get everything you always wanted." You know, the story of the little girl and the little boy who got everything they always wanted.
They lived happily ever
They
after.
lived happily ever after, yeah.
That's why it's a fairy tale.
Unless it's not anymore. Maybe this is it. Maybe you're already the little girl or the little boy who got everything they always wanted and you just haven't realized it yet. So, how would you know? So, 3 keys to success in NLP in this way of thinking about things. I guess I want to leave that up there and we'll just take this one down. Number 1 is know what you want. In fact, I've been writing them a little bit different in our weekly meeting as 5, but first of all, just know what you want. Number 2, know how you're going to know. When you have it. Most people never get to this question. Lots of people have outcomes or goals for themselves and go right on past the fulfillment of the goal or outcome and never have any way of knowing that they've done that.
Like they're too general, not specific, or?
Yeah, like they just never
No
got the
deadline.
criteria for knowing, so no deadline, none of that criteria
No
is there,
benchmark.
so how do you ever enjoy your life? I mean, maybe, hopefully, the process of it is where the joy is. It's in the journey, not the arrival at the outcome. And if you never knew you got there, how do you know to start the next thing? How do you ever get fulfillment about anything? So you got to know how you're going to know when you have it. And number 3, once you do that, you want to vary your approach until you achieve it. If you're going to go from here to Hawaii and you're going to sail from somewhere in California, how much are you going to be off course?
Depends on weather and other factors.
Weather, current, winds, all that stuff happening. You're going to be 90-95% off course all the time.
Are you in water?
And, yeah, you got to make sure you're on the water. Yeah. You got in a boat. And if you're a degree off going to Hawaii from San Francisco, for example, how much are you going to miss Hawaii? Could be hundreds of miles. And it's a big ocean, little tiny island. So you got to keep your eye on what the goal is, what the outcome is. Outcome is Hawaii. You got to know that because you could be way off. And doesn't mean you should stop. Doesn't mean you should give up. And lots of people give up way before they ever get to the outcome or goal they set for themselves. So this 3 keys of success is represented here as inside the well-formed outcomes. So number one, if you've got a highlighter or something you want to mark or highlight, what do you want? Because that's the first question. The other questions are good questions under number one. The second question, though, is how will you know when you have it? Highlight or mark that one. These are the specific questions I'm going to have you asking right now as you learn the process of getting a well-formed outcome. Number three, it says appropriately contextualized. What specifically will you see when you've achieved the criteria you identified in number two? The second part of that is, well, what are you going to hear? What do you need to hear? What's critical for you to hear? What are you going to hear when you have the criteria satisfied for knowing that you're achieving your goal? What are you going to hear, smell, feel, taste, all of that? Individual questions, and then you can go to with whom and how specifically and all of that. So you get how that part of the set of questions works. Questions about it. If there's any one thing as a practitioner of NLP, as a coach, that you're going to get out of this course that's going to make a huge difference in your ability to work with, help other people, this set of questions is the primary issue. This is the keys to the kingdom. Get this down. Keep doing it. You're going to do it for homework tonight. Keep on doing it throughout the course. Eventually you'll get where you can shorthand it. For now, do it this way. You turn the page. Is it number 4 in your book? This is the next big piece of it, because now you've got that criteria. What you need now is a way of building up the motivation for it. So the first question is...
I'm sorry, what page are we looking at?
We're now on 20.
I thought you said 4.
No, number
Okay.
4, next page.
I'm like,
Detail. Slight detail. Detoured, we are now off course and getting to Hawaii. And that's not bad, it just means we need to readjust. So number 4, what are the benefits of just keeping the old behavior? Why should you make a change? It sounds like I may be taking it away from you. Yeah, don't work so hard. I mean, why should you go do that? Wouldn't it be easier just to keep the old behavior? Now, what would be, you pick one of your goals, something you want in your life, and you've gotten what it is you want, you've gotten how you're going to know when you have it, you've made sure that it was appropriately contextualized, and now I'm asking you, well, why don't you just keep the old behavior instead of making a new one?
Okay.
What would be the benefit of that? Some people are going to go, okay, well, you know that the goal or outcome they set for themselves doesn't have enough motivation behind it, let it go. As long as they're willing to accept the old behavior, why should they make a change? Unless there's some other factor that's so big that you have to bring it back in and reconsider it. What were you saying?
So that's a way to test.
Yeah, it's kind of a test, but it's more than that. So if you think about it this way, it's like a scale. And on the scale, your scale's like this. You've got the old behavior. It's been working for you. You may not like it, you may not want it, but it's been doing something for you. And now I'm asking you, why not just keep it? So if you can answer this question, I'm not absolutely not willing to have it another moment in my life, then the scale begins to shift the other direction. The next question is, well, what are the costs of keeping the old behavior? Because it's a process of getting it out of the unconscious reality that you have into conscious awareness and attention. Now the second question, what are the costs of the old behavior, gets you more aware of what you want to move away from. Clear? There's a very specific order to this, so the next question is, now we shift over to the new behavior, now that we got what you don't want anymore. And the next question is, you don't let them go to what the benefits of the new behavior are yet. You want to know, what are the costs of having a new behavior? What's something you want?
as related to,
Anything, any goal.
Residual income.
Okay, so you've got all the other criteria done. What are the benefits of just keeping it the way it is? I mean, you've been eating and
The benefits would be
Driving.
that I don't have to work any harder, I don't have to have any additional stress, work longer hours, come up with any new plans or
Okay.
ideas.
Cost of the old behavior?
I don't get to move forward, I don't get to have as much freedom and time.
Okay, and now that's good. It sounds like we're getting where we want to go. What are the costs of creating a new behavior?
Well, I have to put a lot more effort into it and I have to actually work on it.
You're going to have to work on it. It's going to cost you some stuff. You may have to give some stuff up.
Well, I probably won't be able to socialize as much and to do other
Okay,
things.
yeah, there's all of that. So people tend not to think through things very completely. So what you're doing is helping them think through it in a much more complete way where this stuff is now getting consciously evaluated. So then finally, the next step is, what are the benefits of the new behavior?
Transform my life and I'll be able to do the things I want to do more
Yeah.
readily.
And there's a way that she's speaking it, even though it's maybe a hypothetical situation, that there's a lot more flow to it, there's a lot more freedom to it, there's a different way she's speaking it. Now, you want to pick real things. You don't want to let people get off into vague ideas about it. You want to get them very specific to what the real life issue is, because you can get them to a goal. You can get them to pay attention to what the benefits of keeping the old behavior are, the costs of the old behavior, the costs of the new behavior, and then and only then let them go to the benefits of the new behavior, because now the scale tipped and you build that up, now the excitement's there. The energy is there to actually achieve it. And that's where you want to go before you go any farther with this process. You want to get that in place, because if you're not experiencing the other person having shifted their scale, you've missed something. Either that or the outcome or goal they say they want is important enough for them to do what's necessary to get it.
So I've basically been doing this my whole life, but I call it pros and cons.
Yeah,
When you make a new decision, I
Yeah.
would always put the pros and cons.
It's a good idea
down.
to-
If it's a big shift in my life, or
Yeah.
something that's going to be changing my current situation.
Right.
So I could just word it as pros and cons.
Well,
let's work it
worded
out.
as pros and cons, and it's fairly specific in the way that we're going about it, because we're probably going to raise some issues that pros and cons by itself might not quite get to.
Right, with old pattern, or
Yeah.
the old way, and the new way.
And there's, now we're going to go to the next phase of it, which is looking to see, well, what remaining blocks are there? Because we may not have raised everything just by the pros and cons yet. But now we've got enough energy to move forward, so we want to get, well, what resources are there that, if you had them, would make a big difference? What resources do you already have in the direction of achieving your outcome? What resources do you not have yet that you're going to need?
The steps to get
Now, if we had started this one earlier in the process, we may not have the criteria we need to fill in this piece of it. So it's in a fairly particular order. And then once you get that, what other resources do you need? There's a phase in this where you're actually asking some questions that are going to sound redundant to you. There's, what else do you need? How will your life change when you have it? How will it affect your family, friends when you have it? What's the purpose? For what purpose do you want this? You may think you've already asked that, but when you asked it before, it was at a level that was different than the level of evaluation that you are now. You're likely to raise some more secondary gains or some more resources or some lack of resources that you weren't able to get before this point. So what will you gain or lose when you have it? What will happen when you achieve your outcome? What won't happen when you achieve your outcome? All those are really good questions, and it's all in what we call an ecology check. So you get what the order is? You get some idea that if you ask somebody, you're going to be able to evaluate what it is for them. Just ask the questions that are there. Then you're going to make a plan. Well, what's the first step in the direction of achieving your outcome once you get the rest of these questions answered? And they'll have some idea. Now, if somebody says, well, I don't know, I'm going to give you a little magic linguistic key to it. I know you don't know, but if you did know, what would you say? it's sort of a magic thing. It just unhooks all kinds of things, and people just answer you. I know you don't, but if you did, what would you say?
And you always get an answer.
Mhm.
You said
Almost
you get
always.
Several situations with people, and they will always come up with an answer.
Yeah. Second step, third step, fourth step. By the time you get 5 or 6 steps in place, you've got far enough along through the plan that they're in action about it. And you make sure you never leave the site of a new decision without taking immediate and decisive action in the direction of achievement or accomplishment of that outcome or goal. So make sure they're doing something that will take them in the direction of it. So what are you going to do first? You can frame it like, so that means that when you step up, when you stand up out of the chair you're sitting in and walk towards the door, it's as if you had crossed a line in the sand and the past will never ever be again, and that means that you'll be in action and fulfilling on the goal or outcome you set for yourself and taking the next step and the next step after that and the next step after that. You can actually just language it for them in such a way that they are now involved in the procedure that they created. You just got to get them to take action of some kind, somehow, some way today. Is that all following? All right, we've talked through it. I think what we need to do with it is get you some experience of it, and we want to do this fairly quickly. So you're going to get with your partner, have them pick a goal or outcome, something specific, and begin to ask the questions. I'd say get through step 4. Get at least through step 4 and stop, and if you have problems at that point, let's talk about it, and otherwise switching.